From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your morning update.
3 exciting days of bucking, roping, and thrills are coming to Red Bluff. Over $350,000 is up for grabs for 700 of the toughest cowboys and cowgirls. Friday is Patriot Day, brought to you by Food Max and Outback Contractors. Saturday is Sierra Pacific Industries and Windows and Corning Ford Day with an evening concert by Creed Fisher.
Don't tell me that you understand.
Sunday is Davidson and Heyman Family and Dignity Health St. Elizabeth Hospital Tough Enough to Wear Pink Day. Get your tickets now at these locations.
Well, I'm sure watching that gets you a lot of you amped up, ready for the Red Bluff Roundup for next week. You know, I've got a pair of free tickets to give away. All you got to do to enter to win is email me at mkrueger@weathernorcal.com, and even easier, just go to weathernorcal.com. In the menu section, click Contact, fill out the form with your email, your name. Just say, hey, I want to win the tickets, whatever you want. Doesn't really matter because you'll be entered in the contest, and the winner will be announced next week, Wednesday, April 16th on Coffee with Krueger live at 6:30 in the morning. So be sure to watch then to see if you won your tickets should you enter to win. All right, so here's a look at your weather headlines. We're going to start off with mostly cloudy skies. I think a lot of us will see clearing for the midday, and then more clouds coming in the afternoon. And speaking of that, later in the afternoon, maybe some areas of rain and a few thunderstorms, especially to the north around Siskiyou County, for example. And then later tonight, parts of the valley, northeastern Shasta County, Modoc County, all seeing that late tonight, early tomorrow morning. We'll get into that a little bit later. A drop of the temperatures today and Saturday. Not a big drop, but it will be just a little bit cooler out there with the potential for gusty north winds this weekend. I also expect dry and warmer conditions as we go into next week. All right, so let's take a look at Krueger's Quickcast. For those of you that just want to head out the door today, know what to expect for the rest of the day today. And you got it right here. Out the door this morning, mostly cloudy, mild because of those cloudy skies, generally in the 40s for the higher elevations and coast, and even those 50s for the valley. So you can clearly see all those clouds coming in. That's why we've got the mostly cloudy skies. A little bit of clearing coming in behind that, as I mentioned, and then more clouds coming in. Now, you see a little bit of a spin right here. That is what's eventually going to bring us a chance for some thunderstorms here later this evening and going into tonight as well. So let's take a look at that on Futurecast. So there you can see the overcast skies this morning. You see how by midday we're seeing it kind of clear out, especially off to the east, just kind of a thin veil of clouds, although along the coast, a lot of those low and mid-level clouds keeping it mostly cloudy. Let's take you into the afternoon. You see how it's kind of popping up a little bit here in northeastern Siskiyou County, but that's going to be few and far between, right? But see how the clouds are kind of starting to increase again here. Now, there are going to be a few showers trying to develop here around Red Bluff by this evening, and by this evening and tonight, maybe even around Redding, seeing a sprinkle, a shower, maybe even an isolated thunderstorm here for tonight. Northeastern Shasta County, making its way into parts of Siskiyou County as well. Now, all of this is going to continue to just slowly migrate northeastward, and I do expect to see the potential for some heavy rainfall, gusty winds, maybe some thunderstorms here around midnight, after midnight, into early tomorrow morning for parts of Modoc County. We'll get into that in more detail with the potential for thunderstorms even tomorrow afternoon for parts of the Eastern Mountains. All of that coming in the deeper dive, so be sure to stick around for that if you've got plans over the weekend. There you can see your Mount Shasta Ski Park. This is going to be my last report of the season, folks, because they are closing down here after this weekend here. But there you can see that summit depth, 102 inches. You've got those spring conditions. It's nice in the morning with the firm snow, but then it turns soft by midday. Temperatures today, again, not quite as warm as they have been. We do have those overcast skies, but as mentioned, some of these clouds will part ways as we go into midday, and then more clouds coming in here later on in the afternoon with, of course, that potential for showers I was talking about here. Let's take a look at that 7-day outlook here for Redding and Red Bluff. Yes, Red Bluff, you may even see a sprinkle here late afternoon, early evening. If we see any thunderstorms in the valley, I think the best chances at this point do look to be in the Redding area and then northward into place, Anderson, right? For example, Cottonwood, possibly city of Shasta Lake. But there you can see over the weekend you're dry and you're warming up, especially going into next week. Now, taking a look at the coast, inland and for Trinity County, you're mainly dry today. All right, so that's what we got here for today and tomorrow. It's warming up by the second half of the weekend and early next week. Now, for Siskiyou County, maybe an isolated shower or thunderstorm, especially in eastern Siskiyou County. For Alturas, Modoc County, late tonight, early tomorrow morning, kind of that time frame here. And then for the eastern mountains, or Susanville in particular, dry today and tonight, even for the morning on Saturday, but maybe some Saturday afternoon showers here and thunderstorms. Dry on Sunday, and then dry and warmer going through next week. All right, so that's a look at Krueger's Quickcast. Hope you have yourselves a great Friday. But stick around, because we've got a lot more to talk about in our deeper dive forecast, especially with your weekend forecast. And for those of you that want to track the storms that are coming through today or later this evening and tonight and even this weekend in the Eastern Mountains, you can easily do that from the free Weather NorCal app. Just search for Weather NorCal in your app store and download the app for free today. It's hyper-local, folks. It's all about Northern California. All right, so again, we take a look at the big picture. You've got all of these clouds coming into Northern California here this morning. That's going to keep it overcast. Now, as this all pushes eastward, there's a little bit of clearing. Now, we do have some of that cool and unstable air right here. That is going to create some instability later this afternoon for some of us. But another thing that will kind of help to reinforce that is this. So a lot of times you get that instability because of the what we call convective activity, the daytime heating of the day that rises into the colder air aloft, and we see those thunderstorms popping up. However, what can create thunderstorms, not necessarily just from convection, but even areas of these disturbances that can push through, like this one right here. This one will probably push through sometime around this evening into tonight. And that's why some of us have that chance for showers and thunderstorms, depending on the positioning of that disturbance. So Futurecast, I think, has got a pretty good handle on this. Let's take a look at it, and we'll kind of walk you through the timing here. So we go into around noon today. We're dry. We're also seeing a little bit of clearing, especially to the south and east, kind of a thin veil of high clouds for many of us as we go into midday, but still a lot of cloud cover, especially off along the north coast and even to the north here as well. Now, as we go into about 3 o'clock this afternoon, you see how we're starting to see some thunderstorms trying to pop up here in eastern Siskiyou County and northwestern Modoc County, and maybe a little bit of activity trying to develop here in eastern Shasta County. Here we are at about 6 p.m. today. All right, now look at this around Red Bluff. See that maybe a little bit of a light shower or a sprinkle developing by late afternoon, early evening here. A line right here. All right, so if you see a sprinkle out towards western Siskiyou County, not out of the question, but still not a lot of activity out there just yet. It's not until we go into the evening and tonight that that disturbance I was talking about that's now over the Pacific starts to move through. This is going to help to destabilize the atmosphere for some of us. So around Redding, maybe a shower. We can't rule out an isolated thunderstorm there as well. Anderson, City of Shasta Lake, Cottonwood, right? But south of that, most likely dry. Now it does extend into northeastern Shasta County, eastern portions of Siskiyou, and northwestern Modoc County. All right, now let's take you into midnight tonight. Now that disturbance is mainly impacting northeastern Shasta County, Bernie, Fall River Mills, most of Modoc County at this point, looking at those heavy downpours really with some of these and the potential for thunderstorms. 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. Still, a lot of you will be asleep and maybe be woken up by some of that heavier rainfall, maybe even hearing some rumbles of thunder, but now it's exiting Shasta County 3 a.m. on Saturday. Now, as we go into Saturday morning at 6 a.m., maybe some leftover showers. The timing of this is not exact, but you get the idea. And then dry for everyone else to start off the day on Saturday. Now, midday Saturday looks pretty quiet, doesn't it? But that disturbance is now pushing down to the south, and you can see some of the clouds developing off to our east, but nothing just yet. Maybe some convective activity developing here, along with a little bit of a spin in the atmosphere that could create some of those showers and possible thunderstorms, especially in Plumas County, but say places like Chester, Lake Almanor, for example, Susanville, Portola. You might see some of that Quincy, right? So a lot of these areas off to the east here could be looking at, it's going to be isolated. Not everyone's going to see it. And then everyone else is dry through the day on Saturday. And then Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, it's all done with, and everyone will be dry on Sunday with sunny skies, and temperatures are going to be warmer by the time we get to Sunday as well. I want to show you the HRRR forecast model here, because this is what's going to help to really explain that, some of these short-range forecast models not 100% on par with each other. Take a look at the 5 p.m. today. And again, we're looking at a different forecast model than we were just looking at here, but the same time frame. Look at Friday, 5 p.m. today. There's really no rain showing up here. Even as we go into tonight, nothing popping up for anywhere near Redding, anywhere near Bernie. This model only wants to bring that potential activity here in eastern Siskiyou and into parts of Modoc County as well. And then that will probably continue into Modoc County by Saturday morning. So it depends on which model you look at. But I still feel like we could see that potential later tonight around Redding and then making its way northeastward, that first model that we were looking at here. So what would that mean for rainfall totals? Well, it depends on where all of this activity develops and who sees the thunderstorms, but you can clearly see that line, that path of the storm as it moves to the north and east. And I think most of the rainfall that we will see will be in Modoc County, as the storm will probably be at its highest intensity by the time it does move over parts of Modoc County. So just kind of be aware of that. And again, we're talking about this disturbance that'll be pushing through. So we look at the upper level pattern as well. And sometimes we look for what we call our jet streaks. So you see these winds here, the reds, the darker reds, those are faster winds. The greens and yellows aren't quite as strong of those winds here. So what happens is you get these jet streaks where it's really strong winds kind of coming out of the weaker winds, and that can create a level of what's called upward divergence, upper levels of the atmosphere. That divergence is an upward lift. So remember I was talking about convection can create that upward lift, right? You get daytime heating, and then that lift upwards from that heat into the colder air aloft gives you that instability. Now, a lot of times too, though, even without convection, you can have what's known as upper level divergence. That is when the air spreads apart and that creates an upward lift. Okay, so we're seeing that divergence a lot of times. You see a little trough right here. See this trough? So you kind of take a line right here, and usually to the east of that is where you see that upper level divergence. And here we are 5 p.m. You see what's happening? We're getting in that east side of that trough, and we're seeing that upper level divergence. And that's where we could be looking at the potential for some of these showers and thunderstorms developing here as we go into this evening. Now, Saturday morning, that kind of shifts eastward. So you see how we have the weaker winds here, but then the stronger winds right here. So that's going to create some of that divergence, and that's going to create some of those thunderstorms possibly over parts of Modoc County. Again, that's for early tomorrow morning. Then that all shifts eastward, and now we're seeing high pressure begin to build in, especially by the second half of the day on Saturday into Sunday. High pressure, the dominant feature on Sunday, more sunshine and warmer temperatures. Now, next thing I'll be tracking for next week is this area of low pressure right here. Now you're saying, well, why are you tracking it so closely? It's so far away from us. Well, this model is showing it being far away from us, but the European forecast model, you see how it gets a little bit closer, starts moving into Southern California. By the middle and latter part of next week, the European forecast model wants to track this low more up here to the north. If that happens, you see all the rain that's developing here, that will also push northward as well. So as of right now, this model is not showing us any rainfall for all of next week for all of Northern California. When I say Northern California, NorCal, right? Because, you know, parts of Reno, Tahoe, the Sierra could see some of those showers. But for us, based on this model, nothing. But as I mentioned, the European forecast model has this low more to the north, which takes all of that energy and pushes that up to the north as well. And then, of course, this model, again, pushes it mainly over Southern California. But again, if we look at the European forecast model, that would be pushing that more to the north here. Once again, maybe giving us that slight chance for some activity here. So we'll watch that. For now, though, I'm going to keep it dry. We'll wait for a little bit more consistency in long range. Now, the winds, as I've been mentioning, are expected to pick up. Now, this afternoon, they'll probably pick up a little bit here, especially along the coast, eastern mountains, and even parts of the valley. You may notice those winds picking up a little bit. Off and on winds through the weekend, I don't expect any wind advisories. We may be borderline, but right now it looks like mainly just 20 to 30 mile per hour winds here for the coast. You start heading offshore, much stronger winds there. But especially the north and west side of the valley, seeing some pretty strong winds here, 20 miles per hour or slightly higher. Not as bad though for Chico, and not as bad off to the east. That's for tomorrow midday. We take you into Sunday through midday. Once again, we see those strong winds, especially for the valley, and even the east side of the valley seeing some gusts there as well, over 20 miles per hour. Not as strong for the coast on Sunday, but still some wind. So again, you get the idea. The winds are going to be something you'll notice here off and on through the weekend, but nothing major. Now, we do have a temperature outlook here, and you can still see that, yes, we are in that warmer than normal category. I mean, look at this. The blue line is indicating that 70-degree mark. That's the normal high for this time of the year in Redding. We'll be above that all this weekend, all next week, generally in the 80s. But if you notice, we're not quite seeing those 90s just yet. So if we can just kind of keep it 70s and 80s, I know for me, I'm a happy camper. We can do that. Drier than normal conditions are also in the longer range forecast, but with that snow melt, we're still continuing to see these lakes fill up. Still those positive numbers, about a half a foot in the last 24 hours for all three lakes here. The historical average is over 100% there, and we're not at 100% capacity because, you know, that would obviously be a little bit more serious. But looking at 90% out towards Lake Oroville, 88% for Trinity, and 94% capacity for Lake Shasta. So these capacity levels are just rising and rising. Now, this morning the winds aren't that bad, but by this afternoon those winds will pick up, those waves that is. Those waves will be pretty high on Saturday as well. So there is not a small craft advisory this morning, but there will be a small craft advisory for this afternoon. South winds this morning, 10 to 20 knots. Those are going to be rising through the afternoon, so just be aware of that. There's your waves, there's your high and your low tide, and of course that small craft advisory. All right, so here's your Trinity County neighborhood forecast. Temperatures are going to be in the upper 60s, even some low 70s. However, you head to the south, places like Ruth about 63 and 58 degrees for Mad River. For the north coast, there you can see temperatures mainly in the mid to upper 50s. Now inland, places like Alder Point and Garberville, I think you could get into those low 60s. That's also the case for Orleans, Hoopa, and Willow Creek, somewhere in the low to mid 60s. 63 for Smith River, 57 degrees for Crescent City, and Trinidad about 58. But I think we're dry for the north coast today. Now for Siskiyou County, we could see a stray sprinkle off to the west here. Later this afternoon, maybe an isolated shower or thunderstorm to the north and east this afternoon, but those chances will be slimmer for places like Mount Shasta. However, later on this evening and tonight, we could be seeing some of that activity once again, mainly in eastern parts of Siskiyou County, but then dry by late tonight and tomorrow. Now, for Modoc County, you are dry today, but by later on this later on tonight, really once you get into the late night, early morning hours, that's when we can see that heavier rainfall, gusty winds, maybe some small hail, lightning strikes, the works. So things could get interesting for Modoc County here when a lot of you actually are sleeping in bed, unfortunately. But there you can see those temperatures are going to be in the 70s and 60s here for the eastern mountains. You're going to be dry pretty much all day, although places like Bernie, you may see some of those thunderstorms developing later on tonight. All right, so here's your valley neighborhood forecast of the south. Dry all day today. Dry all night tonight and into tomorrow as well. Temperatures are warming up for the second half of the weekend and early next week. Chico, you'll be dry today, you'll be dry tonight. Just those mostly cloudy skies, especially for the first half of the day, and then more clouds coming in by this evening and tonight. But as I mentioned, still dry for Chico. We're back in the 80s though by Sunday and Monday. We take you up to the north, Anderson about 77. It's also the situation for Cottonwood and 78 for Red Bluff. Red Bluff, you may see a sprinkle late afternoon, early evening, but I think any activity we do see in the form of showers or maybe even thunderstorms by this evening and tonight will be, say, Cottonwood, northward, Palisadro, Bella Vista, Whiskeytown, Lakehead, City of Shasta Lake, Redding, Anderson, Cottonwood. Yeah, all seeing that potential for a shower or thunderstorm later this evening and especially going into tonight. So there's your 7-day forecast for Redding. We are dry though after late tonight, after midnight. And then we're dry for the weekend, warming up to the low 80s by Sunday, low to mid 80s for Monday through Thursday of next week. That's your morning update. I'll be back again at noon for your latest forecast. Until then, have a great morning.
Barr & Mudford is a top established firm here in the North State. Founded over a half-century ago, Barr & Mudford is protecting the rights of our neighbors and community. We take our commitment to our clients very seriously and provide a level of excellence unrivaled in the North State. Barr & Mudford, standing up for the rights of our neighbors and our beautiful community, serving Northern California with excellence.